Conti on Gain Points. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Matthew Ross. We're here until 1 a.m. in studio as well. Mo Khan, Stefano Micella helping us out. Jimmy G on the board. That song, of course, called Dirty Water. It's about the city of Boston. It's the victory song of both the Red Sox and the Boston Bruins. And it's very apt because our next guest works for the Boston Globe. You can see his work on, of course, the Boston Globe. He is a guy who was in the midst of things yesterday covering the Boston Marathon. He's a sports writer. You can follow him on twitter.com/Globe. Eric Wilbur. It is Eric Wilbur. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Hey, Matthew. How's it going?
I am very well. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time.
No problem.
Now, of course, Eric and I, for whatever reason, have hooked up on Twitter for a long time now,
right.
And I guess it would have been nicer to have you on under better circumstances, and maybe I should have gotten in on that. But nice to have you on the program, Eric. I guess a surreal scene, I'm sure it was yesterday. And how's the mood today in the city?
It was like last night when I got home. It was. I really don't think anything really hit me, and I think it was the same way for a lot of people, that it was just too immediate that we couldn't really grasp it. And then this morning, I think a lot of reality came to light, especially when we started learning. We knew that an 8-year-old boy had died as of last night, but we didn't know his name. We didn't know the fact that his father had run the marathon and that he ran out to hug him before the bomb. That his mother and sister also suffered injuries. And these are the sort of stories that we're learning today. And it just becomes more real and more sad that this happened to our city, and that someone would attack our city and our event on a day that, truly is a special New England day. I mean, there's really nothing like Patriots Day, and it's one of those things that you have to experience to really understand. It's like the first day of spring, basically, where everyone cooks out and everyone, packs the streets and cheers on these runners as they, do this ultimate running quest. And, for it to be marred by this tragedy was just, it was really upsetting. And I think there was a range of emotions today. And I think depending on the hour and depending where you were, you really kind of went from anger to sadness to sorrow. And it was just it was an uplifting day at the same time because everyone's in this together. And I think everyone realizes that we're all cooperating. We want the FBI to do their job, and we want to help out. And, the Red Cross is actually turning people away at the hospital because they have so much blood that so many people have donated, which is just a testament to the resolve of Bostonians. And, the stories we heard yesterday was that, people were crossing the finish line, or they were, in the family meeting area, and they just kept walking over to Mass General to donate blood. I mean, that's just, I'm not a runner, but I do understand the fabric of a running community. And if that doesn't, define them right there, then I don't know what does.
Such a range of emotions yesterday in Boston. Of course, the Red Sox playing at 11 a.m. yesterday. And as I mentioned, I'm a Red Sox fan. And, a game in which they're at home, they're playing a division rival. They get a walk-off hit to end the game and send people away, just, absolutely excited for the rest of the day. And then something like this to happen, just obviously terrible. You obviously were covering yesterday's events. Tell us, where you were, in the hour leading up and what you were up to. Because on Boston.com, if you have a chance to go check out Eric's work, it's quite intriguing as to the experience that he had.
Sure, yeah. I had just spent an hour at the finish line talking to some of the racers who had crossed over and getting some of their stories just to have an instant reaction piece. And then I went back into the media center, which was at the Copley Plaza Hotel, which is right at the finish line of the medical tent there. Wrote my piece, and I sent it off at the time step read 2:36. And so my work was done for the day, And I could have just packed up right then and there and got in my car to the garage and come home to my family. But Marathon Monday to me it's kind of a special event because even though you don't know these people, seeing them cross the finish line is inspiring. And again, I'm not a runner. I despise running. I don't understand people that put themselves through such anguish for that moment. But you do get some semblance of that when you stand there and watch these people reunite with their families and celebrate with their friends, and it is really uplifting. So I made my way back out to the finish line, and I was probably out there for about 5 minutes. And where I was at a medical tent, which is about a half block away from the actual finish line. And the first bomb went off about a half block from there. So I was probably about a block away from where the first blast went off. And it was just this loud boom. And we saw smoke filter into the sky. We didn't hear a lot of screaming. And I think that's just because everyone was just staring and trying to process this immediately. The first thought that ran into my mind is, well, maybe everyone's okay. Maybe it was just this looks worse than it is. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just something to do with gas, or you process all these thoughts in your head over a 10-second span, and then that second one goes off, and everyone just starts running. And obviously at that point you knew something was wrong, and you start seeing people sobbing in the streets. And I was lucky enough that I didn't witness some of the things that my colleagues did at the scene. With body parts and blood everywhere. So in that respect, I respect them and the work that they did. What I did was easy because it was just a matter of warning other people and warning my bosses that this had happened in immediate effect, so we could get the coverage ball rolling. But I mean, it's like I said, adrenaline takes over at that point, and you go outside and you want answers, and it's part of that is the journalist in you, but part of it, I think, is just the human element that you want to either help or you want to know what's going on, so you can let other people know, where the danger's at and what the status is at certain places. And I think we saw a lot of that yesterday. It was, there was a lot of curiosity, obviously, but I think for the bulk of it, for many people, and obviously praise goes out to the policemen and the volunteers that raced into the scene to help these people. There was a lot of people wanting to help, and that was a very encouraging sign from the get-go. And also, if there's a silver lining, it's where it happened, because there was a medical tent there that they immediately set up as a triage. The ambulances were in immediately because this was the finish line of the marathon. Tons of medical personnel there.
Yeah,
and obviously, it's surrounded by hospitals too. So it was. If it were going to happen anywhere, that was the best possible scenario.
Eric, you generally work on the sports side of things. How much do you end up covering sports the next day? In other words, when does it become tasteless to talk about just the Red Sox or just the Bruins, and what is acceptable and what isn't in terms of talking about sports versus tragedy in the day after and the aftermath of something like this?
Sure, I think it's acceptable because I think obviously they canceled last night's game at the Garden, which was obviously the right move. I think fans were happy with that decision because they weren't ready to go to a hockey game. Likewise, they canceled the Celtics game tonight, which was another great move because it didn't mean anything in the standings, and people are still processing this. I think people are watching the Red Sox tonight and trying to get a little bit of escapism, which I think is
which worked well since they won 7-1.
Worked well, and the fact that they this seems like a pretty genuine group of guys as opposed to last year, and the fact that they're not, I don't want to say rallying behind this, but they do seem affected by it, and it does seem genuine. I do think, where we're going to see for the first time sports kind of, let Boston show its resolve is going to be tomorrow night when, Renee Rancourt steps out to the ice and sings the national anthem. I think that's going to be, it's going to be a special moment at the TD Garden. I mean, these are the events that are televised, nationally and worldwide. That everyone else can see what the fabric of the city is. That's the way you send a message, and that's the way that you show the world what you're made of. And so I think that tomorrow night is going to be, the Red Sox are a nice first step, but I do think that tomorrow night when the Bruins step out to the ice, it's going to be a really special moment to watch.
Eric Wilbur, you can see his work, great work, by the way, on Boston.com. You can also check him out on Twitter.com/Globe, Eric Wilbur. And Eric, we're going to have you back regularly, or at least again, I promise. So
sure.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, and keep up the high spirits.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot.
All right, there you go. That's Eric Wilbur from the Boston Globe.